just by virtue of the medium that it is, box checking, routine, structure, organization, all of those buzzwords that a lot of folks in the neurodiversity community relate to. It's really helped me claim parts of my identity and just contribute to my best, healthiest, happiest self. A lot of my hobbies are rooted in maintaining my inner peace and sanity, and journaling and bullet journaling have been among those things.
At this time of year, we do or historically have heard the word resolution so much that we kind of have this aversion to it now. And I think that's a good thing, but I don't think that we've stopped using this time of year as a reflective time. We still are looking at what areas did I crush this year? What areas crushed me? What areas do I need to examine more closely? And sometimes it's really unclear. Like sometimes all we know is that something feels bad or off or different or uncomfortable. And like anything that we don't understand or don't know what to do with, we need more information. And I think bullet journaling, the essence of it is information gathering. And the more you learn about yourself, ourselves, and our daily functioning, and the more we're able to track in a tangible way the way that we're moving through our lives, I think answers to questions that we have reveal themselves a lot more easily and frequently when we have something to work with.
This is a tool that I use every day to try to be the happiest, healthiest version of me. It's not the only one, but it's a good one. It's a great way to kick off the year, especially when everybody is goal setting. It's a great way to stay accountable. And it's a great way to be in community, to meet other folks that are interested in supporting themselves in this way.
Welcome to the WingSpace podcast, a place to take up space, where we talk about all things wellness, from nutrition to movement to sleep and stress, and so much more. With me, your host, Jennifer Voorhaar, along with special guests and experts within our Hope and Healing wellness community. Let's jump in.
This podcast is not a replacement for mental health treatment or professional health care. In case of crisis or emergency, please contact your local healthcare provider or dial 911.
Hey there, and welcome to the WingSpace podcast, a place to take up space. I am your host, Jennifer Voorhaar, and I am excited to bring you a new topic today. We're discussing bullet journaling. But before we jump into that, I just ask if you find our content helpful that you be sure to like and follow wherever you are listening to this, whether it be on a podcast app or on YouTube, so that we can make sure that this information and health and wellness content is shared throughout the interwebs for those who may be interested. So I have one of our very own, Les, with us, and a new member of our team and new to the podcast. So ladies, I will let you introduce yourselves. Les, do you want to go first and just remind our listeners who you are and what you do, because you have been on the podcast, but also very much behind the scenes in this podcast.
Yes. Usually behind the scenes, my name is Les. I'm the marketing director for Hope and Healing. And so in addition to social media and website and things like this, I also edit and produce this podcast. So I've seen every last one of them and very much enjoy being a part of this project.
Yeah, and I would say that the reason why the podcast is still going is because, Les, you haven't yet said, Jen, I'm tired of listening to you talk. And Georgia, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the Hope and Healing team. Please share with our listeners who you are and what you do.
Thank you. My name is Georgia Wells. My pronouns are she, her, and I happen to share a last name and DNA and a majority of a childhood with your marketing director and podcast producer. So it's extra special and a very meaningful privilege to participate in an organization that I know for a fact does good work, because I've been following it along for as long as Les has been a part of the team. And I've watched it grow and evolve. So I'm just extremely grateful to have been invited to participate in the work that you all do. I am a Maryland native. I currently live in Frederick, Maryland, which is about an hour northwest of DC and an hour west of Baltimore. So kind of right in the central part of the state of Maryland. live here with my partner and our 2 cats. My background is in music therapy. Have been a board certified music therapist for 15 years. And a majority of my career has been spent in end of life care, hospice and palliative care. But most recently, I've been working as a patient and client advocate for a very large mental and behavioral health system in the area. So, mental health and healthcare in general has been my life's work thus far. Patient and client facing, lots of vulnerable people, and also the people that care about them. So a lot of my interests and hobbies are rooted in maintaining my inner peace and sanity so that I can show up for those folks. And journaling and bullet journaling have been among those things, those hobbies and interests. So
It is so good to have you on the podcast and providing an upcoming workshop, which we'll get to that in a few minutes. When Les first shared with me that her sister was a music therapist, I was like, oh, but she doesn't live close. So bummer. And so I'm just so excited that we get this opportunity to work with you and work together on a workshop. I too am, a journaler, and I've dabbled with bullet journaling. And thanks to us putting this workshop together, I have already started mine. So I feel like I'm just a smidge ahead of the game. But for anybody that's listening and they're thinking, what is bullet journaling? Why should I continue listening to this episode? I would love to hear what your thoughts are on what bullet journaling is, what they might want to know about it, and why they would want to maybe come to our workshop in early January.
So I think the neatest thing about bullet journaling is it really is so adaptable. So it can really be whatever you want it to be. I think the ways that it's different from traditional journaling, us and I talked about this recently, I think most people think about traditional journaling as, writing for pages and pages and pages in a notebook, full on words or thoughts or feelings or a combination thereof. And for a lot of people, that can feel time consuming, emotionally burdensome, or overwhelming. It can feel like opening up Pandora's box without necessarily knowing if you're going to be able to close it. And so the nice thing about bullet journaling is it can still offer all of the traditional benefits of standard written journaling, but in more of a bite-sized, digestible way. So that's how I would kind of introduce it.
How and when, I guess, did you originally start bullet journaling? It was kind of new to me. It's just been a couple years that I've dabbled with it. I would say for me, it was like a COVID project that I found it during COVID, and then have dabbled with it in the last 5 or so years. But I'm curious. And Les, do you use bullet journaling too? I'm totally putting you on the spot here.
Your initial question, how did you get started, or why should I keep listening if I don't bullet journal? I think I can speak to that crowd because I have never bullet journaled before in the way that Georgia's going to be showing workshop participants how to do it, and in the way that I've seen her do it. I am more of a paper planner type of gal. And while I may not track things, like I said, in the same way that Georgia does it in her bullet journal, I write down everything that I ever do any day of any week. It doesn't have to be a weekday or a work day, even on Saturdays. And even if I've already done it, I write things down just to make sure that I can remember or reference, look back and see, when did I go to that doctor's appointment, or when was that dinner, or whatever the case may be. And Georgia and I were just talking right before the podcast. I told her, I actually did write a journal entry last night for the first time since July. Because while I like to write, and I go through seasons with journals. I remember as a kid getting journals as gifts, and that was kind of the catalyst. We were gifted many a journal for birthdays, Christmas. That was a very popular gift with a little key that you'll lose 10 minutes after you open it. And so I think that's kind of where that started. So that kind of journaling has had a space in my life and still does sporadically. And the bullet journaling seems like kind of a cool way for me to take my tendency to journal with my planner and maybe expand upon it a little bit, organize it a little better, maybe put my own special touches on it and get a little creative and I like to doodle and draw and fill in bubbles and check boxes. So this is right up my alley. I just know it, even though I have not done it before.
Yeah, and I do want to jump back to that question I had asked you, but I also want to make sure that people who are digital planners hear us and hear my why, and that is I have noticed over the last 6 to 8 months maybe, I feel like I'm constantly standing or sitting in front of a screen. I do telehealth, we have virtual meetings, I'm writing notes, I'm doing emails, so I'm sitting in front of a computer. But then I also have a digital planner. So then every to-do list item, every activity, I was just constantly picking up my phone. And we all know that if we pick up our phone to do one thing, where do we end up? On social media. Because we see a notification or there's a little number over top of the app and we're like, oh, I'll just check it real quick. And so I actually decided in November that I was like, I'm just going to go into 2026 with going back to a paper planner because yes, it's convenient to have it all in one place, but you know what? The little bullet journal is not that much bigger than my phone. So I can still put it in my purse and carry it with me.
And the bullet journal will suck you into the screen.
Everything that both of you have just said has a place in what I am preparing to share with the folks that show up to the workshop. I grew up in the 90s and I was very much influenced by young adult novels like The Princess Diaries and Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging and The Perks of Being a Wallflower. And I mean, even Anne Frank, that we all had to read The Diary of Anne Frank in school. The formatting of, keeping a daily log resonated with me very, very deeply. So I have been a traditional journaler for most of my childhood. I went from 7th grade to 12th grade journaling consistently. Leslie can speak to that. I have boxes of composition notebooks full of literally every single day, just about chronicling my my teenage. It fell off in college, but after college, vlogging was kind of coming on to the scene at that point where people were video journaling. And I did that for a while too. And through most of my 20s, I'd say. And the reason that I engaged in all of that was really threefold. I really appreciated capturing and preserving moments in time in my life. I felt, you know, especially as a teenager and a young adult, it gave me a sense of meaning and purpose, like I was here. um and and this is what was going on in my life at any given time, even if nobody ever saw it. The second thing is just having that retroactive data to go back to, especially if moments are hard or confusing. Going back and knowing, having that tangible, factual evidence that resilience overcame was really a tool that I wound up using for emotional regulation and reflecting on patterns and habits and kind of watching myself evolve and change over time helped me really complete a picture of who I am and what my identity is. That all of that translates into what the bullet journal offers, just in an easier way. For an example, instead of writing an entire paragraph of, you know, something that made me anxious, I am using a color coded system to fill in a square that captures my level of anxiety that day. So it may not necessarily explain why I was anxious or, what happened that day, but over time I can see if there are patterns or trends in the level of anxiety. How does that compare to the weather? How does that compare to how much water I've had? We can get kind of into the weeds of that later, but just jumping back, I was influenced by social media for bullet journaling. It was a targeted ad. The thing that really suckered me in was I saw a Monopoly game board savings template. I've loved Monopoly my whole life, much to Leslie's chagrin. And so that's what led me to explore the rest of the bullet journaling templates. And as Leslie said, checking a box, filling in a color coded square or pixel as they're called really has always filled me with a lot of joy. So that's in essence what led me to go on the internet and get the journal and get the templates. And I kind of buffet styled rooting through which templates I thought resonated with me. I adapted the ones that didn't so much, and I recycled the ones that I didn't feel like I wanted or needed to participate with. So it was definitely a targeted ad.
Yeah. And so my caution, listeners, is try to restrain yourself from jumping on to social media and saying, what is bullet journaling? Because you're going to end up down a rabbit hole that is going to feel like overwhelm. Because I am not an artist. And so, my snowman doodle looks like a stick figure, right? Like, I'm not an artist, but there are people who have beautiful work and penmanship and the way that it's just a work of art. But not every bullet journal has to be that way. There can be very minimalist journals. There can be ones that have no color. There can be some that you just use templates that you find online and you sticker it into your bullet journal. So I would caution you about thinking, oh, I'm really interested in this. Let me dive into it. That's what our workshop is for, so that you don't find yourself completely and totally overwhelmed. Just shut your phone down and say, forget it. I'm not even going to consider this. When it really is so individualized. I mean, I guess all three of us could put our journals up to the screen right now and they would look completely different and totally functional for all of us.
Exactly. And Jen, you touched on something that we'll talk about in the workshop. Decision fatigue is something that comes up for a lot of people, and sensory and information overload in general. And one of the things that bullet journaling can offer is the antidote to that. So, to Jen's point, if you do, kind of roll the ball down without bumpers, there is that potential for there to just be too many templates, too many stencils, too many fonts to try to pick the best one or the right one. And that's not what it's about. That's not what it's for. It's really just about what feels good and right to you, and giving yourself permission to change it. The coolest thing when we were planning this workshop, trying to figure out the date for it, we're starting on the 3rd of January, which to some people may be like, well, I didn't start on the 1st. What am I supposed to do now for the whole month of January? We're going to invite people to consider January as their trial month for bullet journaling. Figure out what works for you, figure out what doesn't work as well. And that might differ from day to day and week to week. And that's cool. This is just for you, giving yourself the whole month of January to test drive your bullet journal, starting with a really good foundation from the 3rd. And then we already recognized the month of February starts on a Monday, and it is a beautiful, perfect rectangle of four 7-day weeks, just perfectly across. It's chef's kiss.
And the reality is, if you do have a monthly tracker or a weekly tracker or something that you're trying to fill in those colored bubbles for, it's only 2 days. I'm sure folks can probably think about maybe not their exact anxiety level or exactly how much water they drank but I'm sure you can pick a color and fill in a box for those 2 days. And then, yeah, give yourself credit. Those are freebie days. Just fill them in and get started with a couple of boxes filled in. It'll be great.
And if you're listening to this and you already know you're going to start and participate, you can you can make notes of the things that you're planning on tracking, or just start thinking about some of the things that some of the corners of your life that you might want to start logging data.
When Georgia, you were talking about how the month of January is an invitation for people to really figure out what this is going to look like in a way that's sustainable. While I might be a planner person, always have been, always will be, my husband's not. And when we were working on a team together and we had a lot of appointments and we really didn't have a choice but to write these things down. I mean, we had to keep something straight that we could both see while we were on the phones. So we needed a paper planner, and we were really having a hard time with the planner because my husband was forever looking for appointments on the month view page where you see the month. And I was writing things on the week view page because in my brain, I live from week to week. And that's how I visualize my whole life from, and Mark is looking literally at a bigger picture mentally. And also when he was going to look on the paper, where are these appointments? So I think, and he and I figured out, well, we'll just use the month view. Let's take the path of least resistance here. But I think there is probably, for someone who's never, if this is brand new for you, tracking, journaling, using a planner, something like that, if it's never been your thing, it might take those couple weeks to try. Do I want to see my week, or do I want to see my whole month? What feels better? What makes more sense to me? What helps me visualize and stay more organized? What's less overwhelming? I think for some people, zooming out can have different effects. Like zooming out can be, oh, okay, it's not so much. And sometimes zooming out can be, whoa. So it just depends on who you are. And I think that having the month of January to figure that out is really going to help some folks.
Perfect segue and perfect example. As opposed to like a week view and a month view, this is really broken down from month view to actually annual view. And so all of those for me are stored in the back of my bullet journal because I come to them once a day, but the entire 365 days of the year is on there. So for those templates, that's the weather, the temperature, which I divide. So the weather and the temperature are not the same thing. My level of movement that day, how much water I drink, my level of depression and anxiety. Those are two separate things. My cycle is something that I track. Something I'm going to start doing that I didn't do this year is, if and when I experience some kind of health symptom. So anything other than my baseline, as well as new medications that we're test driving. So even, I've been doing this for almost 12 months at this point, but I am still finding things that I'm going to be shifting and adding, as time goes on.
One of the people that I have followed on social media that does bullet journaling actually keeps like her last page of her journal open just for notes, so that as the year goes through, if she's like, you know what, next year I want to track this, or I want to track this in a different way, she can just keep a running list so that at the end of the year, you can take, the 2025 journal with the things that you want to do differently next to your 2026 journal. And then you can already set it up instead of getting halfway through 2026 and going, oh, I forgot I didn't want to do it that way.
Right. Yeah. Perfect example. Yeah. And it's also, I set my journal up monthly. So I had my month dividers in at the start of the year, but I didn't put my each month thing in until the start of each month. And what that looks like is I have a highlight of the day. So what's, according to me, what was the best thing that happened? I have one word of the day, which I'll talk about this at the workshop, but I've kind of turned it into a Scrabble game for myself. I have a sleep tracker. How how long, when do I go to sleep, when do I wake up, and what is the quality of my sleep. I track my budget, I log every single thing I spend money on, and I've categorized it. So then at the end of the month, I add up my entire totals and I figure out how much of each category I spent. And a goal for me this year personally was just to read as much as I can. In my case, it's audiobooks because I reclaim my commute by listening to audiobooks. So I have a book tracker each month. But to use Leslie's language, zooming in and zooming out, that's one of the ways that it can be adaptable. You can do one or the other. You don't have to do both. If all you're interested in is the pixel templates, that's a great place to start. And in essence, that is what bullet journaling, I think, really began as is this very bite-sized, user-friendly way to document whatever. I don't use mine for scheduling. I don't use mine for, really intense emotional processing. Mine is really more of a data analysis and collection tool. But it certainly contributes to scheduling and contributes to those more time consuming things.
Yeah, and I would say, again, the whole piece of it being individualized, I like to see the month view. I like to put, pretty stickers and make it look festive. And, the little kid in me enjoys that. And then just kind of a snapshot of like, what does the month look like? Big events, right? But then for me, I use it as my running to-do list, not necessarily a day view, because my electronic medical record has my day view and it tells me what I'm doing every single hour of the day, but really just like, these are the things that I need to do and these are the days I need to do them on. And I like putting that in with the trackers, and sometimes I'll do like a doodle challenge for the month or something like that. Again, stick figure snowmen. It's not pretty, but I like it.
I would just like to point out that snowmen in their truest form do have sticks. Edges, so the fact that it's a stick, I think that's okay.
Thank you, Georgia. I appreciate that. The inner Picasso in me is appreciating that. But, for me, it having a little bit of fun and a little bit of business, so to speak, like having it be practical as well as having it be fun is helpful for me. So people have to consider what are they going to do, first of all, what's realistic, and secondly, what's going to work. There's people that do month views, there's people that do week views, there's people that do day views. Some people do them all, some people only do one, and that's the beauty of the customization. And what you do in January, you might do differently in February. I put December in mind just so I could get it started, and I already know the way I have December set up is not how I want to do January. And that's okay. I'll just set up January differently. I know we've talked a lot about what bullet journaling is, and we've woven in benefits as well, but I'm just curious if both of you have some benefits for our listeners to do bullet journaling as well as to participate in this workshop to get started. For example, there's times that I meet with clients and they tell me how terrible their sleep is, and then we do a sleep log for a week or 2 weeks, and we look at their sleep, number one, isn't really that bad. And when it is really bad, it's because they've had late coffee or late alcohol, or they stayed up late watching a movie, or there's been reasons why they've had poor sleep. And so if we are looking at particular behaviors, then we can really say, is it as bad as we think it is today? Or is today a good day? And I really look back and go, I slept really well last night, but I'm going to be honest with you, I did not sleep at all the last 2 weeks. And then we can look at trends.
Yeah. So something that I've really been focused on is trying to ensure that all of my wellness pillars, some people refer to it as the wellness star, but all of those things influence themselves. So, your mental wellness impacts your physical, impacts your spiritual, impacts your social, etc. And so a lot of the things that I chose to track fall within those categories. And, I've always known and believed that those things influence the other, but being able to visibly see just how, looking at sleep quality, movement, intensity, and how much am I hydrated, those three things, looking at those things and then checking my mood at any given time. What is that how do they impact the other? And there are patterns, there are trends. And so that information allows me to either continue doing what I'm doing if it's working, or really allows me to isolate what changes are possible and in what way might the changes influence any given thing. I know personally this year I have been on my own journey of looking into neurodiversity for myself. I have always worked with folks who identify that way, but it wasn't until this year that I really started to look inward and notice things about myself that resonated with that brain chemistry, and bullet journaling really allowed me to do that consistently. It allowed me to do that in a what felt like a safe way for me. And just by virtue of the medium that it is, box checking, routine, structure, organization, all of those kind of buzzwords that a lot of folks in the neurodiversity community, I think, will relate to. It really showed up for me by happenstance in some ways. I think, the universe kind of plopped it there, I think intentionally, but it's really manifested in an illustrative way that has helped me claim parts of my identity and just contribute to my best, healthiest, happiest self. And that really to me is the goal. This is a tool that I use every day to try to be the happiest, healthiest version of me. It's not the only one, but it's a good one.
I love that. I love that. And it's why we do what we do. Here at Hope and Healing is to help people. It's literally my elevator speech when I see a client for the first time. I say that I feel like that my job is to help my client be the best version of themselves that they can be. I go in to say that people are not broken, they don't need to be fixed. And it really is about the version of ourselves, the best version of ourselves for today, because seasons change us. And what the best version of me when I was 20 is a different best version of me now in my 40s. So I love all of that. We have been dropping little hints about this workshop that we're going to be doing. So why don't we go ahead and Les, you have put all the marketing together for this, and we've dropped it this week. So can you tell our listeners when it is, what it is, and why they should come?
Yes, I sure can. There are options for our workshop participants to join us virtually or in person. So we're going to have around maybe 12, 15 seats for folks to be in person in Leonardtown. And people can also join us virtually. Georgia and Jennifer are going to be co-facilitating the workshop. And for those in-person attendees, there is an option at sign up to have your supplies included with your registration. So if you want to show up to the workshop on January 3rd, it's a Saturday morning, and we'll be meeting together from 9 until 11. And if you want to come into the studio, sit down and have your journal, your markers, your tape, everything that you need right there waiting for you, there's an option at registration to include a supply bundle. And if you are more of the mindset that you want to choose the specific bullet journal yourself, the specific pens, this or that, maybe you already have things that you like to use or want to continue using, then you also have an option to register for the workshop without adding the supply bundle. You can bring all of your own things, and you can reference our shopping list to make sure that you have everything that you need to be able to participate in all parts of the build your own experience. We will be providing templates, some templates for our workshop members. So those who are joining from a virtual space will be able to print those out a few weeks ahead of time. You'll be able to have those available for you to follow along with us as we move through the workshop. And if you're coming in person, we'll have some printed out for you already, but you'll also receive an email with the file that you can keep forever. So after you're through with this bullet journal, maybe you want to create another one for next year. You'll have those bullet journal templates to use for the rest of time. And so we're going to be, like I said, meeting for 2 hours. So I'll hand it over to you, G, if you want to give us a little more context for what people can expect to walk away with. And then I'd be happy to tell people where they can find link to sign up.
And just like Les said, the first half will be what I hope is an interactive conversation. I am going to be providing a lot of information about the benefits for all people. I will touch specifically on some of the benefits for folks that identify as neurodiverse, but also, if there are parents or educators or clinicians who are looking to offer this as a tool for their kiddos or their students or their clients, we can talk about the implications of that so that folks can empower people that they are supporting in their lives in addition to themselves. And I definitely will be inviting people to participate, comment, ask questions throughout the first half. And then the second half, we're just going to dive into the fun part and look at the templates. And it'll be kind of a collaborative space. So one participant's idea might inspire the idea of another participant, and vice versa. So just I would come into it with an open mind, and there's going to be a lot of flexibility. There's no wrong way to do this, which can be a little intimidating for some people, but it's a great way to kick off the year, especially when everybody is goal setting. It's a great way to stay accountable, and it's a great way to be in community, to meet other folks that are interested in supporting themselves in this way. So it should be a lot of fun.
And you mentioned educators. Not all of our workshops are suitable for younger folks, but we talked about how this workshop really is for anyone, we're saying 15 plus. And just a brief anecdote from my own life. And again, I've never kept a bullet journal before, but I've always kept a paper planner. And one of my best friends, wasn't until a few years ago when she saw me at work writing in mine, and she saw my planner and she said, "Wow, do you write everything down?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." What George was saying, how one idea can inspire the others. This inspired my friend to start keeping a planner. And I don't think we've had a visit in the last 3 years where she doesn't remind me that I changed her life with a day planner, because no one ever showed her how to write things down in that way before, or to document or record, or nobody really suggested that. Georgia and I went to school when the paper agenda that you get at the beginning of every school year, that was implemented when we were maybe
Fifth
9,
grade.
9, 10, 8, 9, 10 years old. And so it really did get built into how we remember things, stay on top of things. And I think the younger that a person is when they start developing this habit, the more likely it is to take hold and stay with them through into adulthood. So don't hesitate to bring your kids or younger folks in your life, or to have them join you virtually. You can make a whole thing of it, a whole Saturday morning, grab some cocoa, make some breakfast, or bring some cocoa and some breakfast with you. And it'll be a really nice experience.
I'm thinking we're probably going to have a tasty beverage, maybe some coffee or cocoa or tea or something, just because, who doesn't love a anyways, but make sure you bring your beverage or your breakfast. Totally fine. I'm really excited. It's a great way, and Georgia, you touched on this, to get started in terms of goals for the year. Out is the word resolution. We're not talking about New Year's resolutions. We're talking about, finding the pathway to the best version of ourselves for this season. And paths are bumpy and windy, and sometimes we go one way and have to turn around and go back another way, and that's how life is, and it's okay. So any last minute thoughts before we tell folks where they can sign up, Les? Any last minute thoughts about why people should come, or expectations or anything?
I think this time of year, like Jen said, we do or historically have heard the word resolution so much that we kind of have this aversion to it now. And I think that's a good thing, but I don't think that we've stopped using this time of year as a reflective time. I think we still are looking at what areas did I crush this year, what areas crushed me, what areas do I need to examine more closely? And sometimes it's really unclear. Like sometimes all we know is that something feels bad or off or different or uncomfortable. And like anything in life that we don't understand or don't know what to do with, we need more information. And I think bullet journaling is really just in it. The essence of it is information gathering. And the more you learn about yourself, ourselves, and our daily functioning, and the more we're able to sort of, track in a tangible way the way that we're moving through our lives, I think answers to questions that we have reveal themselves a lot more easily and frequently when we have something to work with.
I think anytime somebody chooses to invest in themselves in this way, not only is it the greatest gift. I know we're entering the holiday season, but it's the ultimate gift. Investing in your own wellness. So, if nothing else, I would invite folks to give themselves an early gift by registering for the workshop. It would also make a great gift for anybody of age in their lives, but it's also a risk. So anytime somebody takes the risk and takes the chance on themselves, just, empower them to do so with pride, and know that the folks that are, myself and Jen, that will be facilitating the workshop, are there to host a supportive and safe space for that.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that you mentioned the idea of a gift, because some people have no problem buying a gift for themselves. Every now and again, I'll buy a gift and then tell my husband I've wrapped it and it's under the tree, or I'll give it to him and say, you need to wrap this. But this is also a great way to tell someone, if they say, hey, what can I get you for Christmas? This is an experience, but then this is also a tangible gift that they can take away. So consider giving this to a friend or a loved one as a gift, or asking someone to give this to you as a gift, supplies included. So great opportunities as we go into the holiday and into a new year. So now, Les, where can they sign up for this workshop?
Yes, you can sign up for the workshop on our website. You can go to hopehealingtherapy.com. And if you just scroll down about halfway on the homepage, you'll see our announcements tab with all of our current events. And you can click right on the bullet journaling workshop there. There's a button. You'll see the graphic that we've been sharing on social media. It's called All Kinds of Minds Build Your Own Bullet Journaling Workshop. You'll see the icon. You can sign up with or without your supplies, in person or virtual.
I think that those are the only closing thoughts we need. As always, if you have found this podcast to be helpful, share it with someone, encourage them to join the workshop, or just start bullet journaling. And we use this podcast as an opportunity to get information to people that might not otherwise find it. So, Georgia and Les, thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm looking forward to the workshop. Listeners, thanks so much for listening today, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.